Hey everyone, welcome to the Red Gems workshop. We're doing the creative challenge today, which is the sunshine. Whether you're working on the wood cutout or if you're just using the outline of the design, you want to have that painted onto your surface, and then we're using our background color, the burgundy, for the background. And then I have an 8-arm stencil. I'm just using my normal stencil that I use, and a lot of this design is focused in the center, so I really don't need a whole lot. I just have kind of my center in one line there just to make sure that I'm staying even and on track. So because my background is the burgundy, the colors that we're going to use today are True Red, which mine is a pearl. Yours can be just regular if you want to. I've got Red Orange, which is a mix between my True Red and my Tiger Lily. So I've got True Red, Red Orange, Tiger Lily. Then I've got my Orange Yellow, which is a mix of my Tiger Lily and Sunset Gold, and then Sunset Gold. So we're using these 5 colors for the design. The burgundy I used for the background. All right, to get started, our center dot is an 8mm dot, and I'm going to do that in the Sunset Gold. Needed to refill that paint just a little bit. Once you've got your center dot, you're going to take your 1.5mm tool. I'm using my stylus, and we're going to add a ring of dots in the True Red. So I'm going to start with 1 on each of my lines. That will give me 8, and then I'm going to go back and do 1 in between for a total of 16. So you'll see I have my 8, and then I put 1 in between each. Next, I'm going to use my 2.5mm stylus, and I'm going to use my Red Orange, which is the mix of these 2 colors. And I'm going to add a ring of dots, and I'm going to offset those. So I want those to be 1 dot in between each of the previous rings. So we're going to add 16 again. I'm going to start with my 8. And then go back and add 1 in the middle, and this just keeps things kind of centered and evenly spaced. So we end up with a ring of 16 with the Red Orange. Next, I'm going to switch to my 3mm tool. And I'm going to use my Tiger Lily. Again, I'm going to add a ring of dots, and I'm going to offset these. So once again, we're going to start in between the previous row. This lands us on the line. So I'm going to do my 8, oops, used the wrong color there. I'm going to do my 8 on the line, and then go back and do the ones in between. And then next, I'm going to grab my 4mm tool. We're going to use the orange-yellow color. And I'm going to add another set of offset dots. So again, these go in between. And if I did this right, this falls on the first line of my stencil, or the first ring here on my stencil. If your spacing is different, that is okay. Alright, what I did next was I grabbed my pencil, and I'm going to use the pencil tip. If you don't have a pencil tip, you can use your smallest stylus. I find the pencil tip is just a little bit smaller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add dots in between some of these rows. So right around the center, I cannot fit an additional dot in there. So in the row with my true red, I'm going to skip that. But the next row, I'm going to add a dot in between each of my red-orange with that sunset gold. And these are really small, so if you don't feel like you can fit it, just skip this step. So you can see here as I lift this up closer to the camera, in these two rows here, I just added the yellow, the sunset gold dots in between. So I did 2 rows of that, the 2 in between rows. I didn't do the true red row, and I did not do this orange row yet. Next, I'm going to get my 6mm tool, and we're going to use sunset gold, and I'm going to add 8 dots. So I'm going to choose to do this every other space. So this puts us on a line. So we're going to end up with 8 of those. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to walk the dots around these sunset gold dots. And so I'm going to use my 1.5 millimeter tool, and I'm going to use my pearl red, or my true red here. I'm going to add my center dot with the 1.5 millimeter tool, and then I'm going to walk the dots on each side with the 1 millimeter size. So we're working pretty small here. I always like to do my center dot first. And then walk the dots on each side. All right, next I'm going to go to my orange yellow, my 1.5 millimeter tool, and I'm going to add swoops, one on each side of the dots that I just walked. So dip and swoosh, and dip and swoosh. Next, I am going to grab my 2.5 millimeter tool and sunset gold, and I'm going to add another swoop on each side. Next, I'm going to get my 1.5 millimeter tool, and I'm going to use my red-orange color, and I'm going to place double dots in between this previous row here, this ring of orange. So you'll see here on this finished one, I have 2 dots. So I'm going to dip once and I'm going to dot twice. And I'm using my red-orange, so dip once and I'm going to go dot, dot, dip once, dot, dot, dip, dot, dot, dip, dot, dot, you get the idea. So I'm going to go all the way around with this double dots. We are almost done with the center of our sun. I'm going to take my 3mm tool and my orange yellow, and in between each of these petals that I created, I'm going to add one 3mm dot out here in between. So if you're looking at where you're supposed to place this, if you're having trouble, it's in between where those yellow swipes meet. So you'll see I made my yellow swipes. So here's a complete petal, here's a complete petal, and I put that right in between those yellow swipes. Same thing over here. I've got my complete petal, the two yellow swipes, it goes right there in between the two petals that we created. And we end up with 8 of those. Once you complete the center part of the design, we are going to move on to some brush strokes. You can do this with a 3mm tool and just really pull the brush stroke. And I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to go ahead and use a brush. But if you do not have a brush available, you can dip. And then what I do for a really long stroke is I'll pull about halfway, and then I'll let that trail off. So you can create longer strokes, and it's not as easy to do on paper as it is to do on a non-porous surface. But you can create some longer strokes by pulling. So, for example, if this is half my stroke, I can pull to the halfway, oops, redip, and then pull some more. Let's see how long I can get these. So you can get some longer brush-like strokes with the dotting tool. So if you don't have a brush, do not fret about that. All right, so to start with, we are going to do now there's two parts of the sun ray that I'm going to refer to, okay? The part at the top of this little hook, I'm going to call the top, and the part down here that connects, I'm going to call the bottom, okay? So we're going to start at the bottom with a true red brush stroke. And I'm going to pull from the tip inward. So I'm starting at the bottom, pearl red, using a brush, and I'm pulling from the tip inward. And we're going to move down to the red orange. I'm going to add one red orange brush stroke on each sun ray. Then we're going to add one tiger lily. And with this third brush stroke, I'm still keeping this on the bottom of this part of the ray. For the next part here, the next two colors we are going to pull onto the top of that ray. So I'm going to use orange yellow. And then of course, last color here is Sunset Gold. And that's going to go on the very top. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to let my dots dry, my dots and swipes dry completely, and then I'm going to come back for top dots. Alright, I'm pretty dry, so I am going to do my top dots. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my 1.5 millimeter, and I'm going to do my fourth ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is this ring of orange here. And I'm going to add Sunset Gold with my 1.5 millimeter tool. Now, as I always say, you can do your top dots however you want. This is a fun way to make it your own. So please add as many or as different kind of top dots as you want. But this is how I did it on my sample. So I'm going to add 1.5 millimeters with my Sunset Gold on this ring here. next, I'm going to use my 4mm tool and my orange yellow color. And on this outer ring, we have 8 dots in the sunset yellow. I'm going to add my orange yellow to the center of those. The next thing I did was out here in each ray, I used a 2.5mm tool and Sunset Gold, and I added 3 dots, dip and dot each time out here at the end of the ray. Once you have 3 dots all the way around, I'm going to switch to my 1.5mm tool, and I'm going to walk the dots the rest of the way till I run out of paint, all the way down that swipe. And that is it for the design. You can, of course, choose to mount it if you want to put it on a square and hang this on a wall. This is certainly a fun piece too. I think since I already have one mounted, I might hang this up in a window. This is a nice, fun, summery piece. You could do a lot of different things with it. You can even hang maybe a few little dangling sun catcher pieces at the bottom, and that would be really pretty to hang in a window. So I cannot wait to see what you create with it. I might sit with mine a few more seconds here and add a few more top dots just so it's a little different from the sample I created. But make sure you share with me in the share space, and I'll see you next week, everyone.